So with the Game Awards last week, we had some pretty big reveals overall, and one in particular that did get me excited was Armored Core 6. That's for a couple of reasons. One, it's really cool to see Armored Core make a return after about 10 years. And two, I think this is the best shot that Armored Core has since the 90s to really have that big aha mainstream moment. And we're going to talk about that here today, guys. If you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button. And if you're new to the Small Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. First, let's head over to Gamatsu, as they do have a write-up here on the announcement of Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, going to the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. There was disappointment that the Xbox One and PS4 logos popped up, and I can understand that. The systems, by the time this comes out, will be nearly 10 years old. So there's the thought of, oh, it would have been cool if they had specifically developed for the PS5 and the Xbox Series. And since I'm going to be playing this game on those platforms, yeah, I can somewhat agree with that. But I will also point out, we almost went the entire generation of the Xbox One and the PS4 without a new Armored Core game, which is hard to believe considering how many Armored Core games were coming out really up until 2013, when it took a bit of a hiatus, a bit of a break, and disappeared for a while. But it is due out in 2023, so within the next year or so, we should be playing a new Armored Core game. Bandai Namco is publishing this, as we'd expect, with Fromsoftware, of course, behind this. And by the way, a lot of people don't realize that Armored Core is a storied franchise for Fromsoft. It's from the 90s, 97, I believe. But it's been there since the beginning, essentially, of FromSoft. I think you have to go back to Kingsfield. That might be a game that's a bit older for FromSoft, but you have to go back quite a way. You get basically the PS1 to where Armored Core got started. It's been around for a while, and I have basically watched this game continue to evolve with different iterations of it as we've gone along. But for me, I really got into Armored Core, at least became more aware of it and played it with the PS2. And at the time, I think it was just because, I got this PS2, I want to play a game. And, well, when you have a friend who's just going to the store to rent different titles and they're thinking, oh, look, let's play Orphan, or this terrible game here, or this single-player game that looks like it's going to be a lot of cutscenes and hanging out and watching. To see a mech game that would take advantage of the PlayStation 2's power, it's like, let's get that one. And Armored Core was a lot of fun back then, but it was very mechanical, is how I describe it. You kind of expect that with a mech-style game like this, but they do point out the development team will be Miyazaki, who's involved as the initial game director, and then it's essentially being handed off, will take over as the director, that being Mr. Yamamura, who, to my understanding, was a big driving force behind Sekiro, getting that to the finish line and release. So I'm curious, at this time, what influence FromSoft's, let's say, learnings from the last decade or so, with all these Souls games and stuff they've released, how will that work to maybe shape and mold Armored Core? Because I'm going to talk about Armored Core 6 in a recent interview tomorrow in Newswave. Make sure you check that out, where they talk about it not being a Souls game. That's something people have speculated on. Oh, this is going to be them taking Armored Core and turning it into more of the Souls-like formula. They do talk about some large bosses that you'll be fighting. However, they definitely go back and talk about the customization of your mech. And that is something that's very important to the Armored Core franchise, building out a mech how you want, with different attachments essentially all over your mech. And it's cool to be able to do that. But something I've noticed that I think maybe got it into trouble with reviewers is there was a lot going on with the game. It wasn't necessarily user friendly. There's definitely a learning curve to the game with how you're playing it, movement, actions, menus. You dive in and you're going to be taking a while to grow accustomed to a lot of these different things. When you do, it's a very rewarding system overall, but not exactly approachable, at least with some of the previous versions. And that did lead to it kind of being overlooked at times in the West. In Japan, it does fairly well. Like, For example, Armored Core 5, I just wanted to check out some of the sales information for it. It did well in Japan in its initial week. I think it sold 160,000 or so copies. That's very good, but then it fell off completely. Didn't really do much in the West. In the US, it barely sold, and it ended up coming out to less than 500,000 copies when it was all said and done. And that was in 2012, when there was a pretty large install size for like the PS3 compared to when it first launched, of course, and the Xbox 360 was there right alongside of it, although I think Armored Core was just more popular on the PlayStation, considering that was the system that most people in Japan had between the 360 and the PS3. But fast forward to 2023, and a lot of stuff has changed. We just watched Fromsoft go up on stage and accept their Game of the Year award for Elden Ring, and they've done this before in the past, especially with something like Sekiro. So Fromsoft is on a roll, and their name itself is much more recognizable than it was 2012 or 2013 when they had Armored Core 5 come out. And the fact that this is going to be a game that's not a Souls-like, and they're not attempting to morph and really mold this thing into a Souls game, which would probably be able to, I would say, pull from a lot of the stuff that they've learned in the past 5 or so years with a lot of these big-time releases. Gives them something maybe a little different to work towards, and if they can successfully revive Armored Core, would give them a whole other avenue of games to create that's not just the next big Souls game. Essentially, this won't be the next, like, we won't be playing this and going like, this is the Souls the Souls game of the Armored Core series or something. I like that that's the case, that we're not going to be referencing Dark Souls the entire time we're going through Armored Core 6. At least that's just the way that they're painting the picture now. We'll, of course, see when it comes out. But I'm excited to see more about Armored Core 6. We don't have any gameplay of it yet, just them talking about it, the CG trailer and all this, but it's at least set up nicely with FromSoft's name. We saw the trailer at the Game Awards. People were kind of quiet. Bandai Namco, some mechs, and then FromSoft's logo comes up. People cheer immediately. Maybe because they realized this is Armored Core, but maybe it's also because they've been experiencing FromSoft's latest offerings with Elden Ring, Sekiro, the Dark Souls series, Bloodborne, and they're like, oh, I trust FromSoft now. And there are also a lot of people who didn't really know much about Armored Core at all, and I can't blame them. Again, it hasn't sold well in the past, and FromSoft is much more known for their Souls-like experiences. So I'm excited for Armored Core. This is the best chance the series, I think, is ever going to get, and it seems like FromSoft is really, I'd say, all in on bringing back Armored Core, not even as a reboot, by the way. Maybe if it was them taking the formula and making it more Souls-like, they would have just rebooted into Armored Core and essentially launched it all over again in 2023. But seems like this is going to be more Armored Core, just maybe revamped a bit to have a more approachable overall experience. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. With Armored Core 6 being revealed, do you think it has the best shot ever now for the series heading into 2023? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.